Welcome to the Roberts Law Office Injury Podcast. Kentucky attorney Jeff Roberts has over 25 years of experience. He'll provide answers to your questions related to personal injury and automobile accidents, workers' compensation claims, and Social Security disability benefits. Let's join Jeff for this episode. All right, we're down here in Calloway County in Murray, Kentucky, with attorney Jeff Roberts. Jeff, congratulations on the launch of the new podcast, man. I'm excited for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff, as we look at the different content that you've put out, I mean, your website, your business Facebook page, all of that, I mean, you've got videos out there, you've got blog posts out there, you've got all sorts of content on the website. But I think what I like about this format is that it's more of a conversation. And some people just don't want to read a lot. Some people are busy. They want to listen to this information, but they want to listen to it on the move, which, again, a podcast allows us to do. So nice move. I appreciate you jumping in on this.
Well, I appreciate that. I think it's going to be better for me from a personal perspective because I like face-to-face conversations versus just talking to a camera as well. So I think I'm going to like this medium better as well.
Well, friends, if you've not listened to podcasts in the past, the advantage here is these are free podcasts. These don't cost anything. In fact, at some point, I'll point you to different places where you can actually subscribe to the podcast. We're going to publish a new episode about every 2 weeks, so we're not going to inundate you with information, but we are going to put out a continual feed of good information that's well thought out and give you some information that might be pertinent to you or your family members. But why don't we jump into this? Because I think whenever you launch a new platform, especially a podcast, other people may just be kind of getting to know you. So let's introduce you to the crowd and let them know who you are. So Jeff, you're an attorney in Calloway County, but how did you get into law?
Well, that was not really my first choice to be a lawyer. When I was young, my career goal was to be a police officer. In fact, my specific goal was to be a DEA agent, drug enforcement agent. And when I was in high school, I looked at the different ways to get into that. I went and actually talked with the head of the local state police post, who was kind enough to sit down and talk to a junior or senior, I can't remember which I was then, about a career in law enforcement. And he indicated, at least at that time, from the Kentucky State Police standpoint, their new hires were either coming out of the military or their new hires were college graduates. So I looked into both of those options. My mother was much more inclined for me to go to college than she was to go into the military, and I looked into it, and so I started at Murray State University. I grew up in Mayfield, Kentucky. So
I was going to say, I thought you were from the area here.
Yes,
right?
I'm from Western Kentucky. I grew up in Mayfield. And then, so Murray State University was very close. I was actually able to attend college and work full-time and live at home at that point in time. So I did that. My major was criminal justice because I wanted to be a police officer or law enforcement. And it was around the end of my junior year, I had a professor at Murray State that was my advisor as well, my criminal justice advisor, who was a wonderful man. I thought the world of him. And he approached me near the end of my junior year and asked me if I had ever considered a career or going to law school. And I told him then that no, wasn't really interested in going to law school. I wanted to be a law enforcement officer. And if you see me in the videos now, you'll see I'm not a large person now, but when I was in college, I was 130 pounds soaking wet. So he told me then, he said, well, I think you would make an excellent police officer. The problem is because of your size, you're not going to get hired. So, and he strongly encouraged me to go to law school. So I thought about that and some other things going on in my life at that point. I met a lady that ultimately is now my wife of 26 years, almost 27 years.
Congratulations.
And thought about, especially doing undercover DEA type work, what kind of life that would put forth with her or any family that I had. So I decided to go on to law school at that point in time. So that's kind of how my law career started. It was a roundabout process, but I'm glad it turned out like it did.
And where did you go to law school? Was it at UK or U of L or?
No, actually, I went to Southern Illinois University Law School in Carbondale. At the time, and I don't know if they still have this now or not, but at the time that I graduated from Murray State University and SIU had a reciprocal agreement that graduates of Murray State that went on to a postgraduate degree that was not offered at Murray State, but it was offered at SIU, then Murray State graduates got in-state tuition at SIU and vice versa. An SIU graduate that wanted a postgraduate degree that SIU didn't offer, but Murray State offered, then that SIU student could come to Murray State and get in-state tuition. So I was able to go to SIU with in-state tuition there, and that was the closest law school to my home from that perspective. And when I filed my applications, that was my first choice. Their application process was due much sooner than any of the state Kentucky law schools. So I sent in the application and had received my acceptance paperwork back from them before I even had to apply to any Kentucky school.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
And then from there, I mean, you went to SIU. And did you come back to Calloway County after that, or did you come to Calloway County after that?
Yeah, I come to Calloway County when I graduated law school. Took the bar. Graduated in '92. Took the bar exam in July of '92. We get the results. At least then, you got the results in October for the July bar exam. So I got my results that I'd passed the bar exam, and by the end of October, I'd been sworn in and had started practicing law. Actually, right here in the same building, I still practice. I started practicing law with a gentleman named Don Jones, who had been practicing for years at that point, and I come on as an associate attorney for him back in 1992.
So how many years have you been practicing now?
I am in my 27th year.
Wow, congratulations. And actually in the same building in which you started. I mean, that's hard to do sometimes.
It is hard to do. I'm a creature of habit, as my wife will say. But, I've been here from the get-go. I've been by myself as a solo attorney since 2000. Mr. Jones and I practiced together from 1992 until November of 2000. I became a partner in the firm in '96, I believe it was, when I became a partner in the firm. But unfortunately, because of cancer, he passed away in November of 2000. So I've been a solo practitioner ever since then.
Now, you spent a small period of time as a prosecutor as well as a private attorney, correct?
Yes. In my private practice, I concentrate on personal injury cases. I do car accidents and slip and falls, those type of personal injury cases. And I do quite a bit of workers' compensation and Social Security disability cases as well. In doing those type of cases, the personal injury and the workers' comp and the Social Security is an administrative practice. So you're in front of an administrative law judge. You're not in court in front of a jury. And with the personal injury part of my practice, you have a lot of cases going on, but a lot of those don't try. They settle, which is good for the client, and you want the cases to settle. But I kind of got felt the need that I needed to be in court more so that I could keep my trial skills up for my clients. Because if you're having a trial every 5-6 years instead of having a trial several trials a year, your skills are going to change. Use it or lose it, so to speak.
Right.
So there was a gentleman that was the county attorney here, and I approached him about being an assistant county attorney for him. Probably I know it's the early 2000s. I can't remember if it's 2001, 2002. And so I talked to him about that because I wanted to get into court and try cases. And so he brought me on as an assistant county attorney. And pretty much since that time, there's been maybe 6 months to a year from that period of time from I started till now that I didn't act as an assistant county attorney for Calloway County, but I've been a prosecutor pretty much for the past 19 years or so, doing criminal trials for a long period of time. Now, the county attorney changed, I guess, 6, 7 years, or no, approximately 5 years ago. And that county attorney that took over wanted to try his own criminal cases, and I understood that. So at that point, I switched to doing pretty much exclusively the child neglect and child abuse cases, which gets me in court arguing evidentiary issues, and I'm in court every Monday morning arguing those things, so it keeps my skill level up to where I want it to be at from that standpoint. And it allows me to do an area of practice that I enjoy doing, because I initially wanted to be law enforcement. So prosecution kind of continues that.
Scratches that itch a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. It scratches that itch from that standpoint, but it also lets me keep my skills honed so that I'm doing the absolute best that I can do for my private practice clients.
You know, it's kind of interesting. You had mentioned that when you were describing your practice today, that you do a lot of car accident cases, but you also do some pretty big other cases. I mean, you get into very complex trucking accident cases where, again, having those sharp, aggressive trial, experiences on an ongoing basis really help in these truck accident cases. Those are a lot different than going up against State Farm for a fender bender down here on Main Street.
Yes, it is. There are quite a bit different. There's an area of law that is devoted to those, basically, the Federal Motor Carriers Act in that regard, that you need to be familiar with, you need to know, and you need to know the different experts in those type of cases. And I do handle trucking cases, truck accident cases from that standpoint. And also, you can get into, with those type of cases, secondarily liable defendants, or defendants that may be primarily liable, but it's not obvious to start with. A few years ago, I was involved in one of those where it was a dump truck that had a tire blow. Ultimately, we found out had a tire blowout, crossed the center line and of an interstate, hit ongoing vehicle, and several people were injured in that case. I come involved actually after the case had already been filed by some of the parties. I become involved in the case on behalf of 2 children that were injured in that wreck, and I looked at all the facts and looked at everything, and it at least appeared to me that there was a potential product liability case against the tire that malfunctioned in that. So I brought in the tire manufacturer as well as suing the trucking company as well. So those cases can be very complicated, and you need someone who is familiar with that area of law and also familiar enough to know to look at any potential other defendants out there or other causes for this accident.
Well, and I remember a while back you produced a video on wrongful death, and I would think in some of these automobile accidents, trucking cases obviously, but even in the car wrecks or the motorcycle accidents you do, those wrongful death cases have got to take a toll on you over time. I mean, those are tragic. They
are tragic. Sitting across the conference room table talking to family members who've lost loved ones it does take a toll on you when you do that. But they need someone that's willing to fight for them and to represent them. And most of the time, the vast majority of time, the family members are more concerned about making sure that what happened to their family doesn't happen to someone else.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times you think, wow, well, they're just going after the money. No, it's... that money's not going to bring back a loved one.
No, the money's not going to bring back a loved one. But what the civil justice system does, as opposed to the criminal justice system, and everybody's familiar with the criminal justice system, the civil justice system is the monetary damages for negligent conduct or sometimes even intentional conduct that can result in monetary damages. But that has a very motivating factor on people to do what they should do. And I suspect a lot of us have been in conversations or overheard conversations that said, well, you shouldn't do that because you're going to get sued. Well, frankly, a person should be saying, well, I shouldn't do that because that might injure someone.
Yeah.
You don't drive drunk because you might get sued. No, you don't drive drunk because you might hit somebody and injure them or kill them.
Right.
That should be the motivating factor. But I've seen it, frankly, from federal governments in governmental hearings. We don't want to do that because there's a potential we could potentially be sued for that and have to pay damages. I've seen it with corporations who've made that same statement in their policies and procedures or in deciding their course of conduct. And if you look at a lot of the advancements on safety that we have in this country, a lot of that came about as a result of the civil lawsuits and monetary damages being awarded. And so it's a very strong deterrent for people not to have negligent actions or to change their behaviors so that they don't injure and kill people in the future.
And that's one of the things. I don't know, sometimes, attorneys get a bad rap, but the things they're actually doing is really good work. I mean, it's important work for a lot of families, especially when they need it the most.
Absolutely. I agree with you. It is, and we do get a bad rap from that standpoint. But, and no offense to any of my lawyer friends out there, but sometimes we shoot ourselves in the foot in that regard, and we bring the bad rap on ourselves by some of the advertisements that are out there in that regard. And as in any profession, there are some bad apples out there. The vast majority of attorneys that I know that do my type of work are in it to help people and to make society better. But there are some people who are motivated by money and money only. Yeah. And so I think that causes us to have a bad rap to some extent. The other part of it is you don't hear reported the good that we do in the civil justice system very much. If you look at who owns a large interest in a lot of the news networks, if you go through their corporate structure, at least this used to be the case, and I think it's still the case, insurance companies have a pretty large stake in that. So you hear about a verdict that's a really, really large verdict. Everybody knows the McDonald's coffee case verdict from several years ago. You still hear about that case being talked about. And they boiled down a 2 or 3 week trial to a 1 minute snippet on the news that was essentially lady purchases coffee, spills it on herself, and she gets a bunch of money. And if you go and look at the actual facts of that case and look at what was shown in that case about the knowledge of the defendant and the conduct of the defendant, and there's been a movie made about it now that's changed a lot of people's opinions on that case when they hear the entirety of it. But when you try to boil down a 3 week trial into a 30-second or a 1 minute snippet on the news, then you're not getting all of the information. And while they give you, she got burnt and she got this amount of money, they don't go into any detail of it. And then everybody looks at it. Well, everybody knows coffee's hot. How come, the system is broken, and when really it's not. In fact, our system, civil justice system, is the envy of the world.
That's interesting. The thing that I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand, of the 3 major areas you work in: personal injury, so car wrecks, motorcycle accidents, truck accidents, things like that, workers' comp, and also Social Security disability. Those are contingency fee cases. And, we're used to seeing attorneys who bill by the hour and whatever. That's fine. But what they don't often understand is you could lose your entire investment in that case if you get it wrong.
Correct.
Or if it's a bad fact pattern or whatever. You want to kind of walk through, first of all, in Kentucky, what is a contingency fee case? And again, the amount of risk that an attorney takes on.
Yes, a contingency fee case just means that the fee is contingent upon the recovery. So if there is no recovery, there is no fee. And, because of that, the comments about frivolous lawsuits that you hear all the time, at least in the civil justice perspective, is not the problem that people make it out to be, because it's self-regulating. If you have an attorney who files a lot of frivolous cases that are personal injury cases on a contingency fee, then that attorney isn't going to make any money, and they're going to go out of business in a very short period of time. Attorneys that do personal injury work, that concentrate their practice on personal injury work, like myself, are very selective in the cases that we take. Because we don't want to take a frivolous case, because in a frivolous case, I spend a whole lot of time and I don't make any money.
In going into a case like that, I mean, you may have to have people come in to reconstruct the accident to find out what actually happened. You know, you're going to take, testimonies and stuff, but you may have to fly somewhere or travel somewhere, and you've got hotels and on all that time. You may have to bring in industry experts to talk about, for instance, the tire blowout that you mentioned in the trucking case. All of that takes money, and the firm, you're actually fronting that cost.
Correct. Yeah, I advance all the cost of litigation here in my firm, and the expenses that I advance are also contingent upon recovery. So, in fact, if I lose a case, not only do I not get compensated for the time that I spent and the time my office spent on the case, I actually lose my own money on those cases as well. But at least in my opinion, when I'm representing someone, I need to represent that person to the absolute best of my ability. And, I understand my clients a lot of times are out of work for an extended period of time because of the injury. So their finances are extremely tight. And if I need to hire an expert on a tire blowout case, or even an accident reconstructionist for a car wreck case that is just, a truck versus automobile, not a semi-truck type wreck, but a normal wreck case, and I need to hire an accident reconstructionist, my clients aren't in a position to give me $5,000 to hire an expert and hire the best expert that I think there is in the field, which is what I want to hire in a case.
Right. More credibility for your case.
More credibility for the case, and I want an expert that's going to shoot me straight and say, you got a case or you don't have a case.
Right.
And I've had some that unfortunately I've hired, and then they come back and said, I don't think you got a case here. But I'd rather know that early on than 2 years later. When the defense experts tells me that, and then my expert says, "Oh yeah, well I have to agree with them." So I prefer to have that information up front from there. But if I'm relying on my clients who don't have an income coming in to cover those expenses, then I'm going to have to try to look for the least expensive expert there to make it better on my client, or forego an expert, and ultimately the person who suffers from that is the client, because if I don't have the best expert or don't have an expert at all, the final outcome in their case, even though we may be successful with some sort of a recovery, is nowhere near as great of a recovery for the client as if you process that case and present that case with the best possible experts you can.
Well, and I think a lot of people come in maybe with a misconception about that, and they don't really understand the economics of a lawsuit, which is, again, why a lot of these, you said earlier in this episode, actually, it's good for the client when the case actually settles.
It is good for the client if it settles for fair value.
For fair. And the client ultimately makes the call, I'll accept that or I won't.
Absolutely. And at least the way I do it, I don't know how other attorneys handle their cases because I don't watch them handle their cases. But my clients in a personal injury case, I will usually we make the first offer, and I will sit down with the clients and talk with them about the strengths and the weaknesses of their case, and also talk with them about what I think is a fair settlement in their case. So before the actual initial settlement offer is made by me to the insurance company or a defense attorney or whoever, I've already talked to my client about what I think of a fair settlement is. So if 3 months later, we get them to that offer, I can go back and say, you remember when we talked 3 months ago and I said, this is a fair offer, and they're at this figure now, so I think we're better off settling than we are going to trial with the case. Because one of the reasons for that is the expenses go up drastically.
And the timeline extends.
Yes, the timeline extends, the expenses increase significantly. So if I can settle the case in March of 2020 for $1 figure, that is a fair dollar figure that I think is a reasonable approximation of what a Calloway County jury or whatever county it's located in, Calloway County jury is going to do in that case. That is better than a jury verdict that may be higher, because I may have $20,000 more of expense to try that case there. Plus, it may be another year and a half before I can get it in front of a jury, depending on when the court's calendar is. So it may be the dollar figure may be slightly less, but ultimately what goes in the client's pocket is greater.
And again, you're making this advice, you're advising your client based on, well, now over 25 years of experience of doing this, hundreds of these cases.
Correct.
So you've got a wealth of knowledge there and experience that the client doesn't necessarily bring to the so that's why they're trusting you. That's why that's important to have that level of trust.
Exactly. It is important to have that level of trust. And, attorneys who, or at least I don't guess I need to talk about other attorneys because I don't know how they do things, but at least what I do is I keep up to date with what's going on in juries actually all over the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Yeah, and that's published on a periodic basis.
Correct. I actually get a publication. I don't know if I get it monthly or bi-monthly or every 2 months. I'm not sure from that standpoint, but there's a publication that I subscribe to that every personal injury trial in Kentucky, this publication publishes it out, so I know what the juries are doing all over the Commonwealth of Kentucky, in Callaway and McCracken, but I also know what they're doing up in Ashland, Kentucky, or Louisville, Kentucky.
And you don't just get the headlines; you get the details of the case, and you can kind of look at it and say, well, is this similar or not similar to mine? So again, you have a better way of evaluating those offers from the other party when they come to play, right?
Exactly, and that's the benefit of having an attorney who concentrates their practice, like I do, on personal injury. Because if I did divorces and I handled business litigation matters, and I also handled a variety of other legal matters, bankruptcy, real estate,
and just happened to pick up a car wreck.
Yeah, and then somebody comes in with a car wreck case. I can handle that case too, type situation. Somebody else may be able to do that. Somebody else may be a jack of all trades. I personally am not able to do that. I'm much better when I concentrate, and then I can do a better job for the clients that I have, and I can keep up to date with what's going on. I can take the time to read that jury verdict reporter to know what's going on in civil jury cases throughout the Commonwealth of Kentucky. I can keep up to date with, on a monthly basis, with what the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court of Kentucky does on personal injury cases. And if they change the law, then I know that as soon as it occurs, so I can use that to my client's advantage instead of waiting, several months down the road when it finally hits the legal research sites, because there's a lag from the time they actually make a decision and when it actually is published on the legal research site. So I know that law right away because I get those on a monthly basis as well, and I read those on a monthly basis. And I also, I know from those what experts are doing. Jurors are believing these experts, and jurors are, not really finding this expert to be credible. So I know I don't want to use that expert. So it helps out not only knowing what the jury is doing damage-wise, but it also helps out in hiring what experts I want to be hiring in my clients' cases.
Well, and you touched on this just briefly, but we're here in Murray, we're here in the heart of Calloway County, but you don't just practice in Murray. I mean, talk about your geographic market.
I don't practice just in Murray. In fact, most of my cases are probably outside of Calloway County, from as a total anyway. Calloway County may make up the largest share of any. I may have more cases in Calloway than any other county, but I handle cases in Graves County, Marshall County, McCracken County, Trigg County, Christian County, in Lyon County. I've handled cases in all of those areas. I've had personal injury cases actually up in the Jefferson County area. I've had attorneys in Jefferson County, even up in the Covington area, up in northern Kentucky, call me and ask me to represent their family members in workers' compensation cases and things of that nature. So I handle cases, certain cases all over the state. Now, obviously, if it's, I'm more selective on cases that in Jefferson County or in Covington. I'm going to be much more selective in taking that case on just because of the time involved for me to represent the person in court in that case.
Travel time, all that other stuff, all those other expenses that come into play.
Yeah, all the other expenses that come into play. And it may be, if they call me on that type of case and it's one I'm not going to take because of the distance, I will make sure that they're put in touch with an attorney that I know is going to do them a good job closer to where they live. So, it's not a situation where someone reaches out to me, I'm going to throw them to the wolves by not giving them any advice, but I will try to put them in touch with someone closer to them if it's not a case that I'm willing to take on because of the distance.
So, Jeff, if someone did want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to contact the office?
Best way to contact the office is to call. My office number is 270-753-0053. And you can also contact me through email. My personal email is jeff@jeffrobertslaw.com. Also, if you go on my website, it's got a live chat version on the website where you can chat with someone. And what will occur is after you have that live chat with that individual, they will send me an email of the conversation. So I will actually get the conversation, and they'll send me a text message telling me they sent me that email. Now, the text message doesn't tell me what the conversation was, but I will get access to that through my email as well.
Through that app and things like that. And you also have a contact us form right there on the website as well, and that's almost just like an email.
Yes. Yeah. The contact us form on the website, and if you go on the website, it's got the office phone number. There's a 1-800 number on there that, frankly, I never call, so I don't know that I can recall
it's
it.
on the website.
Yeah, I think it's 1-800-844-5108, but double check that on the website to be positive. And so if you are out of the area, you can use that toll-free number to call me.
Yeah, and of course, you've all, like everybody else, you've also got a Facebook page, which is out there. So, again, if you like Facebook, that's another way to kind of see what's going on at Jeff's firm, at Jeff's office here.
And I have had clients reach out to me, or potential clients reach out to me through Facebook Messenger. So
Messenger is probably the better because it's a little bit more discreet than just posting a comment.
Do not post your legal information on the Facebook post itself. Contact me through Messenger instead of doing it on the Facebook.
Well, buddy, Jeff, I really appreciate your time. I mean, why don't we go ahead and wrap up episode 1? Again, congratulations on the launch of this. I really appreciate it. And for those of you listening, thank you very much for your time. And again, about every 2 weeks, we're going to launch a new episode. And you'll be able to find these in various places. Eventually, they'll be out on iTunes and a few other the podcast directories. But you'll see them on the website. They'll be posted to the website in the blog area. And also, we'll cross-post those over to Facebook. So thank you very much for listening. Again, Jeff, thanks for your time. I know you're a busy guy. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. And just in case you're wondering, my name is Jim Ray. I am a non-attorney spokesperson. So anything that I contribute to these ongoing conversations, you don't have to listen to. But the stuff that Jeff talks about, he's talking from 27 years worth of experience. So I give him a listen, maybe take a note from time to time. So again, thanks much for everybody, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Roberts Law Office Injury Podcast. Jeff will return in 2 weeks. Until then, he invites you to visit jeffrobertslaw.com and follow his firm on Facebook. At the Roberts Law Office, you'll find a history of small town service and big city results.